Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
If you would be so kind to take your seats as we get started here. We're actually starting almost on time, 6:05 p.m. As we get the program started, I'd first like to bring to you Mrs. Andrea Evans. She is director of this great building. You know, I've driven past this building a million times, but never paid it any attention. This is a great structure. And I would just like to thank her for allowing us to host the event here tonight. And she would just like to have a few comments. If I may bring her, Mrs. Andrea Evans. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Good evening again. My name is Andrea Evans. I am the director here at the Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies. And I bring greetings to you from Northeastern Illinois University, but personally I feel very honored that you all are here and that you're having this conversation today on a most important topic. I want you to know that this building is very, very special. As you go out and you see all the pictures on the wall of icons, all of those individuals have been in this building at one point or another. Paul Robeson stood on this stage. W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington were both in this building. This is rare air that you're breathing in this space, and it's fitting that this conversation is taking place in this building. I want to thank my friend, and I say he's my colleague. He retired from the position that I'm in a few years back. So I want to thank Dr. Worrell for his leadership and guidance, and certainly support of me personally, but also support of the Carruthers Center, ongoing support, and for his care and love of Black people. So again, I welcome you. I hope that you all come back again soon. But for now, have a wonderful evening and a wonderful talk. Thank you.
Ashe. I would like to do a libation to our ancient and to our young ancestors. Those ancestors who walked the earth when Black people were proud and free, and the thought of slavery had never crossed their minds. For those brothers and sisters, I pour a libation. I pour a libation to those who are like us, who were enslaved. And they say they worked us till we dropped dead. But we still survived, and we always wanted to be free and to be the same people that we were back in the olden days when we walked proud. For our ancestors who came over here into Jamaica and Europe and all over as chattel slaves, I pour this libation.
Ashe.
And I pour a libation to our youngest ancestor who walked these halls and gave us wisdom for many years, Brother Anderson Thompson. We pour a libation. If you guys want to call anyone's name that you hold dear, please do now. We'll pour a libation.
Shokwe Lumumba.
Cheery, Jesse Gentry,
Mario
Bobby
Gavin.
Wright,
Queen Mother Moore.
Drusilla Houston,
Hannibal Afrique.
Mr. Hammurabi,
Hannibal Afrique.
libation. Patient.
Sharcy McIntyre.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe.
Amy Gardner.
Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.
Asa Hilliard.
Ashe. Ashe. And libation to the African future yet to be born.
Ashe.
May Amenet and Amen be satisfied.
The next person that I would love to introduce and have the honor of introducing is none other than the great Dr. Willie Wilson. Now, many of you know him, but I've come to know him very well, and I refer to him as the man with the golden heart. Dr. Wilson has ran for several political positions in the city of Chicago. And his last election, he won all the African American wards in the city of Chicago. So can we give him a hand clap for that? And if it were not for him, this event would not be happening today. Amen. Dr. Wilson has taken reparations by the horn, and he has placed himself in a position to push this economic agenda in the faces and in front of the city elected officials, and in January, it would be represented or presented to the state of Illinois. And I think that's a pretty big deal. So again, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Willie Wilson.
Let me thank Beatrice for the introduction, and let me also acknowledge Dr. Conrad Worrell and Colbert and all of the members who's here, the panels who's here. I haven't had a chance to meet you all yet, but God bless you. And for all those who came tonight, my job is to try and to support those organizations that fight for freedom. It's my job. We're not on the front line out here, but at least we can be behind it with the financial to make things happen. Those are my job and the role that I play. I take my hat off to the people who's involved here today and been involved in full parents and bringing things alive and keeping it up to date. This is important to me because I'm from Jim Crow days. I lived the life. You know, I understand it all. You know, and so appreciate the fact that you're here. Appreciate the fact all you all came, and we hope to keep this continuously going. Don't let it just stop here. Let's take it on. Forefather gotten out and fought for us and died for us. At least we can do what we have to do today. God bless you. Let me encourage you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. The next person that's coming to the mic, you all know him, Dr. Conrad Worrell. And I just want to say that I was referring to him as Conrad, and he corrected me today. He mentioned to me the degrees that he has earned in his life. I know he's one of the great history buffs, and he said to me, Beatrice, that you refer to Willie Wilson as Dr. Wilson. He said, but I need to let you know that I'm a doctor too. And I would like to bring him to the mic, Dr. Conrad Worrell.
So, how's everybody? Good. This is December 4th, 2019. And December 4th, 1969, something happened in Chicago with the murder and assassination of Fred Hampton and Mark Clark. And so Fred and Mark and the Panthers used to meet in this building before it was coming into being as the Center for Inner City Studies. I can remember Fred being on the fourth floor looking out the window at the police. So I think we just need to have a moment of silence this evening in honor of that tragic event and assassination and murder of two young freedom fighters. So thank you. So at our last symposium, Sister Zakia took the mic.
And again, I would like to see some sisters sitting up here at this table. Why can't sisters, we can talk, we know the history, we've done research, so sisters can be up here. I'm tired of all the time brothers up here doing things. I mean, you know, we might protest outside this evening, you know what I'm saying? No, we ain't gonna do that. But to the scholars up there that have studied and done your homework, and I've learned so much from Dr. Conrad Worrell, all down the line, I've learned so much from you all and passed it on to my children. They're more scholarly than I am.
Zakia didn't know we were trying to bring in a couple of sisters, but their schedules didn't permit. And I said, this is a good thing, Zakia Muhammad raising this question. because the women in our movement have played a tremendous role in the reparations movement in this country. And so I just want to thank Zakiya Muhammad.
Chef.
Thank you. And I'm going to go on and sit down, but I just noticed Bennett Johnson in the room. So Bennett, are you 90 yet, Bennett? 90 what? 90 and a half. So Bennett, Bennett was in school at Roosevelt with Harold Washington. This is one of Harold Washington's partners. It was three of them: Gus Savage, Bennett Johnson, and Harold Washington. So Bennett has emerged on the internet trying to give us guidance in the reparations movement, and he's making some good points, and he's been a mentor of mine along with Herman Gilbert and Gus and Harold back in the day. So I'm glad to see, and plus he lives in Evanston, and the sister who'll be here this evening talking about the reparations work in Evanston will be, hopefully she'll be here before the evening is over. So let's give Bennett a special big round of applause. And finally, the gentleman back there used to shoot some mean threes with the Bulls. And when the Bulls won one of their championships, he went to the White House and gave Bush a letter concerning the condition of poor people in this country and black people. His name is Craig Hodges, before Kaepernick and all of this. So Craig is a very good friend of mine because I used to think I could play basketball also. But I'm a little older than Craig, but we got to be friends over the years, and he's here this evening in support of this program, and he has his book telling his story about going to the White House and getting shut down in the NBA. You know, after he did what he did, they wouldn't let him play anymore. But he still has a mean jump shot, and you can look at it on video because it was cold. So hopefully we'll have a good program this evening. Thank you, Brother Willie, for surfacing, because Willie used to write checks to us in the back room. Now he's come out publicly writing checks. So. Thank you, Willie.
Thank you, Conrad. Can we give him another hand clap? So we're going to bring Nefertari Walker back to the mic, and she is going to give us a reading on Callie House.
So let me say something about this. The sister that was supposed to come from Kansas City couldn't make it. So this sister's been in the movement forever and ever. So this is really not a backup, but it's a good thing.
I was really impressed by this. It's like there's a brother and a sister that's doing research on Callie House. I'd never really heard of her, but black folks always wanted to get paid back from all the trials and death and how we built this country. And the more we dig into it, the more we find African people, way back when, it was fighting just as hard as we are now. And one of them was a sister named Callie House, House. Someone wrote this as an article. For the work of Callie House, we have drawn from the researches of the late Christopher Alston and Dr. Mary Berry. Thus, we are left to infer information about this heroic woman's motivation and personal life. Thanks to Dr. Berry and Mr. Alston, however, we do know several of her achievements and the major sacrifice which she made as the United States wrongfully imprisoned her for her work. Much as the United States later would unjustly imprison the incomparable Marcus Garvey for his work. The organization which Miss Callie House founded was called the National Ex-Slave Mutual Relief Bounty and Pension Association. So when she started it, between 1897 and 1899, there were 34,000 African people, members in her group. By 1900, there was 300,000. So the sister was really working, but you know, she had some folks with her. Her principal associate was Reverend Isaiah H. Dickerson. Afterwards, her principal associate was the Reverend Augustus Clark. Mary Berry places Ms. House's work in the period from 1894 to 1915. During this period, working through meetings, literature, and traveling agents, the organization successfully developed membership across the South as well, according to testimony from Reverend Dickerson before a U.S. Bureau of Pensions examiner in 1902, Oklahoma, Kansas, Indiana, Ohio, right here in Illinois and New York. So they were all over the United States, this organization that her and Brother Clark started. The association's principal office was in Nashville, Tennessee, but they maintained a press operative in Washington, D.C. The association's 25 cents annual membership fee and the 10 cents monthly dues, along with $2.50 charged local affiliates for a charter, augmented by an occasional extraordinary levy of 5 cents to defray special expenses, provided the funds for this mass-based movement's work. So it seemed like it was right around, it preceded Garvey, but it was right during that time when black folks was really kind of hyped up for freedom and for themselves. You know, Garvey had a large membership too, worldwide. The objective of the organization was to organize a demand throughout the black nation, which would force the United States to provide the needed and well-deserved pensions they sought for the aging persons formerly held in slavery, their surviving spouses, caregivers, and heirs. Right, sounds like what we're doing now. Okay. The movement's successful organizing, coupled with the ubiquitous white supremacist values of whites generally, and especially United States officials, which disposed them in those days as today to attempt to defeat any significant self-help efforts among black people, resulted in a 10-year postal investigation. Same thing they did with Garvey. It's like back in them days, they tried to get you through the post office, you know, fraud. Okay, so this lasted for 10 years. Yep, after finding no evidence of federal violations, same as Garvey, U.S. officials indicted, even though they found she did nothing wrong, they indicted Ms. House and a number of other members at Nashville for fraud. Although she didn't do nothing wrong, I don't get it. They claim she was using the mail to distribute one of the association's carefully drawn leaflets. What? Okay. She was found guilty and sentenced to a year and a day in the federal prison at Jefferson City. Yeah. She made that sacrifice, but see, that was over 100 years ago, but we still remember her, and we're inspired through her. Okay. Yes. This was October 1917. The prosecution of her associates was not continued, so they dismissed the charges against her associates, so they went on and kept organizing. Nobody stopped. Undaunted upon her release from jail, Ms. House is credited in Dr. Berry's research with funding a class action suit against the United States. Sound familiar, right? So she got out of jail and kept going. You know, nothing stopped her. Okay, this suit was filed in a federal court in the District of Columbia in July 1915. 4 black people claimed that the Treasury Department owed black people over $68 trillion, which was collected as taxes on cotton between 1862 and 1868. Boy, they really worked us.
Yeah.
All the taxes on, but anyway, let me go on. They argued that amount could be traced and was due as part compensation for the labor stolen unjustly under U.S. law during slavery and immediately afterwards. The suit was dismissed, so they dismissed it. In her very important article, Dr. Berry mentions a white man, Walter R. Vaughn, a Southerner and a former mayor of Council Bluffs, Iowa, whose activity in support of reparations resulted, according to Dr. Berry, in the filing of the first congressional bill for pensions for black Civil War veterans and for the surviving persons who had been held as slaves. Apparently, Mr. Vaughn's motive was to provide the pensions so that poverty-stricken black people in the South could contribute to the general economic uplifting of the region. So they're gonna make us pay again. So it's like a double thing. Give us the money, and then we're gonna spend it anyway and rebuild the South. So that's what they're saying this white guy, Mr. Vaughn's intention was to pass this bill. As early as 1883, Mr. Vaughn had written to Indiana Senator Benjamin Harrison, Kansas Senator Preston B. Plum, and Connecticut Senator Orville Platt, urging support for pensions for the bill. Okay, I got it. Congressman William J. Connell filed the first bill in 1890. Dr. Berry writes, it provided for maximum pensions of $15 per month and maximum bounties of $500 for each surviving person who had been held as a slave. In April 1891, after the first bill had been filed, Mr. Vaughn himself undertook to organize ex-slave pension clubs to lobby for his bill. This was 3 years before the association founded by Ms. Callie House and Reverend Dickerson began formal organization. So this is not to say that he was the first to do it. It was Callie House and Reverend Dickerson was in the process of doing it, forming their organization. It is interesting that Dr. Berry's article makes note of the reluctance of black newspapers, churches, and leaders to mount significant support for the Vaughn-instigated bill. There would be 5 submitted, but none survived, so none of the bills survived the congressional committees. This may have been only partly due to the color of Mr. Vaughn's skin. Rather, beginning with the 1895 compromise of the Atlanta Exposition speech of Booker T. Washington, the white establishment in America had crowned this talented, charismatic man as the leader of black people in America, and many of our leaders supported Mr. Washington's as such. Although Mr. Washington would be of help to black businesses, there was nothing in his program that called for reparations. In fact, in his Atlanta speech, he renounced political agitation. Recall, his Atlanta speech would separate his fingers on one hand. I mean, the brother was good in terms of us doing for ourselves, learning trades, but on the other hand, hey, you'd want to slap him. But clearly, also, Ms. House and Reverend Dickerson saw the grassroots organizing of our own people as more important in this period than focusing on a lobbying effort in United States Congress. It would seem likely that those creators of the association had been hard at work laying a foundation for their movement long before Mr. Vaughn's first bill was filed in Congress. And to me, I'm honored to talk about her because this was a sister that, took it upon herself to get reparations for African people from all this due to our enslavement, being used as property, and they organized all over the United States. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nefertari.